Greetings. Welcome to this introductory lesson on financial mathematics. Let's look at the terms of financial mathematics, okay? Perhaps I could call it terms and concepts of financial mathematics. When doing financial mathematics, we come across certain terms as P. P refers to the principal amount, okay? The principal amount is actually the amount that you either invest, so you invest it so that it acquires interest, or you borrow it in a loan, okay? In that case, that is a loan. So this is the initial amount. Let's think of it in contrast to, say, the accumulated amount. A is for the accumulated amount. But what is the accumulated amount? This is the amount paid. So it's an amount you'll be paying back. So it's the amount paid after interest has been charged, okay? In the case of a loan, so it's the amount you're paying back after interest has been charged. Or if it was an investment, what would that be? This would be the amount you get back, okay? This would be the amount paid to you on maturation, when your investment matures, okay? So this amount A will normally be bigger, to be a larger amount than the principal amount. Why? Because this is P plus some kind of interest. And then we come across another concept, the concept of interest. Interest is explained, say, on borrowed money, on a loan. It's the cost of the loan, the cost of borrowing, okay? So they're not going to allow you, say a financial institution won't allow you to borrow money from them and you return to them the same amount. There's gonna be a cost associated with borrowing their money. And in the case of an investment, we speak of, so if it's an investment, you earn interest on your investment. So you also won't put your money with the bank if you're not getting it to grow, okay? So this is the money you earn. This will be the money that you earn. Another concept that exists in financial mathematics is referred to as the period. So the period would be how long. It's the question of how long, okay? How long are you investing with the bank or another financial institution? And how long are you going to take to pay back a loan that you borrowed from a bank? Now that we have these four concepts, we can start to look at what kind of situations arise and how you you earn your interest. Okay, we can look at how you earn your interest. So in terms of earning interest, you are introduced to two concepts or two methods of earning interest. The first method would be simple interest. And the second would be compound interest. So you can see simple is, as the word stated, simple, but compound is more complex. It builds on, okay? So the formulae, we do not derive this formulae in class, but the formulas that you're given for calculating simple interest, for example, it says the accumulated amount is the principal amount, open bracket, 1 plus the interest multiplied by the period. So the period can be given in years, it can be given in months, it can be given in quarters of a year, and so on. That is time. So because we explained above clearly what each of these symbols stands for, you are supposed to know what you'll be substituting into this formula. So A would be the amount that you accumulate over a certain period, and the period would be there, N, and I is any interest. Interest is given as a rate, okay? So we normally speak of interest rate, and it might be something like you get 12% per annum, that is per year, and that is an example of an interest rate. But let's just think a little bit back to when you learned percentages, and in case you struggle with percentages a bit, what does it mean to say 12%? It means 12 per 100, okay? So it means 12 out of 100, and 12 out of 100 is 0.12. Okay, let's look at compound interest. If you were earning interest or charged interest in the compound interest method, what you would have is that your accumulated amount would be your principal amount, 1 plus your interest rate, but this time n is an exponent, okay? And this is how we calculate compound interest. We do not look at how these formulae are derived in high school, so we will just be applying them, and this pretty much wraps up what you will be, what I would say is the core of financial mathematics. If you you understand clearly the idea of a principal amount, which is the initial amount, an amount that you might be borrowing from a bank, or an amount that you have on yourself and you're investing with a bank or another institution. It could be any financial institution. And what happens to that amount over time? What happens to it is that it earns an interest, and it becomes an accumulated amount, A, over a certain period. This takes time, okay? So people take time to repay loans, or if they invest, the investment takes time. That is the period N. It takes time to grow to the accumulated amount. So we will now look at examples where we do calculations of simple interest and compound interest. So in this example, we have that Vusi invests 5,000 Rand for 5 years at 8% per annum, calculate his maturation amount using, firstly, in A, simple interest, and in B, using compound interest. How would we go about this? In A, we just need to recall that the formula for simple interest is P, A is equal to P1 plus I N, okay, where I is the interest and N is the period. So if you go back to the problem and you look before you substitute, you realize that P, his principal amount, that's the amount he starts with, okay, is 5,000, and the interest is 8%. So that means 8 divided by 100. So that is 0.08. And the period N would be 5 because he's investing for 5 years. What we want to know is that based on the simple interest model, how much money does he end up with at the end of the 5 years, okay? So we're calculating the accumulated amount. Let's now do a substitution, and we have 5,000 multiplied, and our I is 0.08. We multiply that by 5. Let's see what that gives us. So in this case, the amount will come to 7,000 Rand, okay? The amount will come to 7,000 Rand. And then moving on to B, we have to use compound interest. And in the compound interest scenario, the parameters are still the same, okay? P, I, and N still the same, but the formula is different. So we have P multiplied by 1 plus I to the power of N, okay? So in this example, the money is compounded annually, okay? That was not clear in the question, so it's compounded annually. So in that case, what we have to do with I, there's an adjustment we must make to I and to N. So the period N is 5, and yes, so since it's compounded annually, there is no adjustment that we must do to I and N. That happens in a case where perhaps we are compounding monthly or something like that, okay? So we just do substitution into the compound interest formula, and our P is 5,000 Rand, and we have 1 plus 0.08. We take that to the exponent of 5, okay? And we take that. So we find that in the case of compound interest, the amount that Vusi ends up with is 7,346.64. So you can see that the two methods yield different results, okay? In the simple interest scenario, the interest end is 2,000 Rand. Over the 5 years, okay? And in this scenario, the interest, this is the compound interest scenario, the interest is 2,346.64. immediately the question arises, why? Why is it different? Okay? And that is answered when you look at how compound interest works, how this formula works compared to that formula. So in the compound interest scenario, what actually happens is that when we do the first year, let's do compound interest and do n is equal to 1, then we would have a is p1 plus I to the n, where n is equal to 1. So what we would have is 5,000 rand. We multiply it by 1 plus 0.08 to the exponent of 1. And this is clearly 5,000, okay, multiplied by 1.008. And it yields an amount of 5,040. All right. So we would have 5,040 rand. So when you go on to calculate for the second year, okay, so this is the first year's calculation. This amount is the one that will earn interest, okay? It will earn 8% interest going into the next term, all right? So you would take 5,040 as your principal this time. Actually, I shouldn't have this n is equals to 1 to 2 here. It's just a bit confusing. Let's take it out. I'd rather we take it out. Yes, and we just think on how this works. So once you have that 5,040, this was the first, I'll do this in 5-year steps like this. So you take the 5,040 and you charge interest of 0.08 on it, okay?